This is NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen and by Hercules Tires. Now, with a look at local, regional, and international NASCAR racing, here are Hannah Newhouse and Kyle Rickey.
Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. Happy New Year to everyone and happy almost race season. It's right around the corner. I'm Hannah Newhouse, joined once again this year by my co-host Kyle Rickey. And Kyle, it's hard to believe that it was just a short couple months ago that we were wrapping up the 2019 season and we were just a week away from starting the 2020 race season.
Yeah, 2020 race season at Speed Weeks in Daytona and at the New Smyrna Speedway, which we'll talk a lot about as they get set to kick off their annual World Series of Asphalt Racing. However, in going over some of the news of the NASCAR short track world, I don't think they ever really stopped racing on the West Coast. I feel like between Tucson and Irwindale, they've had a lot of action on the West Coast already this season, but look forward to getting at it here on the East Coast here in a couple nights.
Those racers will seek out warmer weather wherever they can, including the Red Eye down in New Smyrna. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but if there is warm weather and a racetrack, these drivers will find it because there's no off season for these short trackers. But we talked about a lot of news at the tail end of last year, including this merger between ARCA and the K&N Pro Series, now becoming the ARCA East, the ARCA West, and we have the ARCA National and the Showdown. There's a lot to digest here, but the schedules have recently been announced for all of those series, and it's shaping up to be a pretty exciting season.
And two of those series kick off this coming week here on the Motor Racing Network. On Saturday, the ARCA National Series and their annual season opener at the Daytona International Speedway. A really good entry list. I believe 33 or 44 teams signed up and ready to go after a couple of test sessions back last month in January. And then a couple of nights later, on Monday night, the ARCA, it's going to take some time to getting used to saying this, but the ARCA Menards East Series at New Smyrna Speedway as they open up or continue a busy week of racing at that racetrack. They'll be there with the modifieds on Monday night. So we expect healthy fields, healthy car counts in both divisions, and we'll have at least Saturday's race here on the Motor Racing Network.
I think we need to start a jar that we can have here in the studio, and every time that we call it the K&N Pro Series, we'll put $1 in it, and by the end of the year, we'll be able to do a live episode from one of these races.
I mean, there are still people calling the Cup Series Winston Cup, and it hasn't been Winston Cup in like 20 years, and then the Busch Series or Nationwide and Xfinity and, Craftsman Truck. So, I mean, I guess
we won't be alone. We won't be alone.
No, we won't be. No, not at all. But, yeah, it's going to take some getting used to. The ARCA East and West, and what is it, the Sioux Chief
Showdown. Yep, it's a mixture of all three of those series, pretty much providing a race within a race for a lot of these drivers that can't actually race the full schedule because of age requirements. That Sioux Showdown includes Phoenix, Kentucky, Mid-Ohio, Lucas Oil, Elko, Iowa, Gateway, Watkins Glen, Bristol, and Memphis. So you've got the East with the 8 races starting, like you'd said, at New Smyrna, and they actually end in New Hampshire on September 12th. The ARCA West, 2 more races in the East Series, starting at Las Vegas Motor Speedway at the Bull Ring. Excited to see that return there on February 20th and ending at Phoenix. And then, of course, ARCA National, 20 races starting at Daytona in just a couple short days and ending in Kansas, October 16th. So there'll be a lot of tracking that you and I will be doing throughout the season as we have a lot of drivers planning on running primarily West dabbling in East or primarily East dabbling in National and a Sioux Chief Championship all within the National East and West. So we'll have an Excel spreadsheet. We'll break it down for you guys. That's right. And get it all figured out. We can learn this together. It's a group effort.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot of learning here this year, but I can't wait to get at it. A couple of big races like we mentioned this week, and then in a couple of weeks' time, I think you're going to be in Las Vegas with me. We're going to try to get over to the Las Vegas Bull Ring for the first ARCA Menards West Series race. Bill McAnally Racing continuing to announce their lineup for this coming season. I believe he's up to 5 cars this year with the addition of Lawless Allen just a couple of days ago that he'll run full-time in that 10-race West schedule. So going to be a great year, and look forward to talking about it all year here on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Yeah, Bill McAnally's got a strong lineup, and we'll get into it more a little bit later. I mean, you've got Lawless Allen, like you said, Holly Holland making that transfer from dirt to asphalt. Gio Selzy also making the dirt to asphalt transfer. Gracie Trotter, one of the East Coast late model names, making a run out on the West Coast. So it'll be really fun to see who ends up where. I'm sure there's a couple more announcements still coming with a few weeks until the West Coast kicks their season off. But to help us digest some of this and really get into what's happening, not only in the ARCA series, but all of NASCAR in the home tracks, is Brandon Thompson. We'll have him on a little bit later to talk about that. And he'll also get to talk to us about some of the Whelen modified news. There's been a lot of that over the offseason. Their season doesn't start until South Boston here on the 21st. Some of them starting that season off, though, a little bit early, heading down to Speed Weeks with you, Kyle, in just a couple weeks. But there's so many exciting things happening in NASCAR short tracks right now.
Yeah, obviously, of those that follow NASCAR home tracks on social media, you've seen the new logo, NASCR Roots, which is going to be kind of the new logo and the new theme for this season when it comes to the regional and weekly series. And Brandon is someone that's been behind a lot of that as far as the weekly series, the NASCAR Whelen All-American Series, and the regional series, and the restructuring of those series with ARCA coming on board this year, and what was K&N East and West falling under the ARCA banner for 2020. So we're going to talk to Brandon about that and kind of preview the seasons ahead. I'm
looking forward to some of the new merch that's going to be dropping. That NASCAR Roots logo is very clean. Yeah. Very clean looking. So I'm looking forward to wearing some of that here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. But again, we had Whelen Engineering on board with us last year, and we're excited to have them again for the 2020 season. And we're bringing something a little bit new this year. We're going to do a spotlight brought to you by Whelen Engineering of a short track across the country, an opportunity to highlight those tracks that give us the opportunity to provide drivers to these feeder series and give us a place to race every single weekend. And so to start our 2020 season off, we're going to spotlight Motor Mile Raceway, Speedway, which is in Dublin, Virginia. It's just under a half mile. So it's a 4/16 paved oval. It opened as a dirt track actually originally in 1952 on farmland. And then it was paved and reopened in 1988. Had a couple name changes, including Pulaski and New River. And then in 2004, it was bought and renamed Motor Mile. And again, we always talk about getting back to those NASCAR roots. It hosted some Xfinity races in 1998 till 1992, or 1988 to 1992. Some big names, though, have come out of that as track champions, including Jeff Agnew, Philip Morris, 8 championships at Motor Mile. Josh Berry has one. Lee Pulliam has 5 championships. And most recently, when it was reopened, Mike Looney was the 2019 champion. That was his first at the track. And it's so cool to see the statistics that have come out of there. It's a great breeding ground for some of the best late model racers that we've really seen come out of the East Coast. So that would be Motor Mile Speedway in Dublin, Virginia. If you're around the area, please get out there, support our short tracks, and support our short track racers as well. We're looking forward to bringing you many racetracks throughout the season. And Kyle, again, this is one of these racetracks that we need to get to. I have yet to go to Motor Mile.
They're going to host 10 events this year, including their season opener on April 25th. Most of the nights, 8 of the 10, will be double features for the late model, so they can get maximum points. The other 2 events, one in July, one in August, will be 100-lap events. And one of my favorite events of the year at any short track on June 27th, the monster trucks come to town at Motor Mile Speedway. So another great season shaping up for the Motor Mile Speedway in Virginia.
Those double main event nights, always helping those chase the national championship. Double the excitement in any night. But looking forward to highlighting all of those racetracks throughout the season. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we will have Brandon Thompson on the guest line to talk all the happenings of NASCAR Roots.
Whelen designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and high-powered warning systems for automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Every part of every Whelen product is proudly designed and manufactured in America and is tested on site to meet the toughest industry certifications. On the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, trusted to perform.
Back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen and by Hercules Tires. Here are Hannah Newhouse and Kyle Rickey.
Before the break, we joked with you guys that with everything happening in NASCAR home tracks world, we were going to need an Excel spreadsheet to break it down and explain it to you. But instead, we've got Brandon Thompson, the managing director of NASCAR Touring Series, on the phone with us. First off, Brandon, thanks for coming on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Hannah. How are you? I'm
doing great. I am ready to get back to the racetrack. It seems like we weren't there that long ago, but it was a nice, solid break and ready to get going. But Brandon, we talked in the first segment here about all of the changes that were happening and are going to happen in 2020. Explain the schedule lengths for us here on the East and West, and how did the Sioux Chief Showdown come to ARCA?
Yeah, so on the East, we'll have 8 races. On the West, we'll have 10. And then, so that's kind of what we're looking like in terms of number of events. But the whole Sioux Chief Showdown and how that came to be was when we were tasked with onboarding ARCA and blending it with the what we knew as the K&N series. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on was just something that obviously actually married the former K&N series and ARCA, but something that could showcase driver talent for younger drivers in particular and pit them against some veteran talent. So basically what we did was we looked at pretty much a lot of the premier tracks, a lot of them being National Series tracks, and said, okay, how can we bring everyone together? Gives us a chance and a good opportunity for increased car counts and all those types of things to really put everyone on the track at the same time. Obviously, the cars and a lot of the parts and pieces have been the same for some time as well. So let's just get everything together and see what we got. And so we're really excited. We're going to kick that Sioux Chief Showdown off at Phoenix. And so we're really expecting big things out of that. And I think we'll see some really good racing coming out of it as well.
Brandon, how big of an undertaking has this been, and how long have you, in your position, been focused on 2020, these 4 schedules, making sure all the parts and pieces of these 4 different series work? I mean, how much of, I guess, 2019 was spent on looking ahead?
You're exactly right. And there's always a balancing act with that, right, Kyle? So you have to pay attention to the task at hand, which in 2019 was 2019, but also kind of work simultaneously, sort of what I've dubbed on Twitter a couple times as, 2020 vision. And now that that's here. But, yeah, this is a process, Kyle, that's been going on really for the better part of about 2 years. Ron Drager and a ton of other people. I don't want to get into calling too many names because I'll surely forget someone, but it's been a true team effort with a lot of the folks on each of the respective staffs, whether from NASCAR or from ARCA. But I really think the end result of this is going to be really beneficial for the fans because we really put a lot of time, a lot of effort, to your point, into this. And now we're really excited to be able to kick things off over at Daytona International Speedway and then obviously over at New Smyrna Speedway. Again, I think it's going to be some really good racing, and the fans are going to enjoy it.
And in perfect timing with this as well, you guys have also rebranded the NASCAR Home Tracks logo to just add to this excitement going into it. It's now NASCAR Roots, as we talked about. We've seen it on your social media handles. New look and new branding. What went into changing it from NASCAR Home Tracks to NASCAR Roots?
Listen, we NASCAR have come under a lot of scrutiny, and some of it fair, to be quite honest, in terms of us maybe losing touch with our roots and the grassroots racing side. I think, to be honest, it's always been there. We've always had people paying a lot of attention to it. Obviously, there's a lot of full-time staff at NASCAR who are completely dedicated just to weekly and what was the touring series racing. Now with ARCA coming on board, it was just really a time for us because ARCA is kind of set apart in the sense that it's not like the other things in the maybe the weekly series or touring series portfolio, but equally as important. And so I think really the NASCAR Roots gives us the opportunity to really focus on all of that. So your weekly series racing and what we're doing at local tracks, as well as what we're doing on the modified tour, as well as what we're doing up in the Penty series with Canada, and obviously ARCA, just gives us a chance to focus on all of that widely because at the end of the day, this truly is the soul of NASCAR, this level of the sport. It's where the most fans are. It's when you look at it on a Saturday night, we've got some 60 or close to weekly tracks that are running every Friday and Saturday night. And when you pile all of those people around, as great as Cup racing attendance and Xfinity and truck racing attendance is, it really can't compare just by sheer volume to the number of tracks that we have. And so that's where the people are. That's what we're really focusing on at our level in terms of the Touring Series and ARCA and NASCAR Roots. And so we're really excited about that. And that's kind of how we're approaching it this year, is just being able to grab hold of those roots and celebrate them.
And we're looking forward to that as well. I know there's a lot of excitement going into it with the ARCA. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour has had a ton of shakeups as well, including our international racing as well. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get back to you here in just a moment with some more with Brandon Thompson.
Whelen designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and high-powered warning systems for automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Every part of every Whelen product is proudly designed and manufactured in America and is tested on site to meet the toughest industry certifications. On the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, trusted to perform.
Back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen and by Hercules Tires. Here are Hannah Newhouse and Kyle Rickey.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. And if you're just joining us, we've got Brandon Thompson on the guest line, Managing Director of NASCAR Touring Series. And we've covered a lot, including the merger of ARCA and the K&N Pro Series. But Brandon, while we've got you here, another cool thing to come out of the off-season was the announcement of Track Pass on the NBC Sports Gold. It's an awesome platform that was the Fans' Choice TV to showcase the short track races, including a lot of the ARCA content. Talk about the excitement that is, I mean, you guys have got to be expecting to be able to have another mobile platform to showcase a lot of these drivers.
Oh, yeah, Hannah, I'm super glad you brought that up. We're extremely excited about that. Obviously, Fans' Choice and being able to bring that to the fans, particularly in terms of the modifieds and the Pinty Series and the K&N East and West Series last year, was huge for us, just to be able to provide live content. Now we've blown that out even more, obviously with some great partners over at NBC. The production quality and all that stuff is going to take a step up. They've even got it broken out where you can do a lot of different packages if you're focused on or interested in just one series or the next. I think you can break those out as well. But look, for the price point, just above, I think it's $24.99 or somewhere around there for the entire season. I don't think you can get any better than that, just to be able to have all your ARCA racing, all your modified racing, all your Pinty Series racing, some specialty weekly shows sprinkled in there, not to mention the variety of other motorsports properties that will be represented on there. So it's a huge product. We're excited to be working with NBC on that, and I've got my Fire Stick ready and already downloaded. I can tell you that's for sure.
Yeah, it kicks off this weekend. I believe a lot of the events from the new Smyrna Speedway involving the Pro Late models and the Super Late models and the modifieds will be on Track Pass on the NBC Gold platform this coming week. What's happening and you mentioned it a couple of times, anything happening on the international scene right now? The NASCAR Whelen Euro Series still a couple of months from kicking off, along with the NASCAR Pinty Series. I feel like they have the shortest season, but cram a lot of racing in a short amount of time up there in Canada. Anything happening up there? Yeah,
so you mentioned the Euro Series. Julia Landauer, who's been a really successful talent here in the States, is going to run over there, so that's really big. Looking for her to definitely win a couple races. She's shown the ability to be able to get up there and run up front on both the K&N East and West Series, so more looking forward to big things out of her. And then when you mentioned the Pinty Series, we're racing on dirt. I mean, can you guys believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Racing on dirt up there in Canada. I think I saw something on Twitter where maybe Kenny Wallace is going to be running that race. He's already kind of added it to his schedule, I believe. So that'll be a big get for the fans. But even, with the return of Circuit iCar up there and just a couple of other things that are going on, the return to Sunset Speedway, a lot of exciting things going on there. So we're really excited about that. And then obviously, even down with the Mexico Series, right? Gene Stephanician and Joe Balish and a lot of folks on that team are doing some really big things. Jimmy Small, who was the former president at Iowa Speedway, has been really working on some of that stuff as well. But with Ruben Garcia, who's a familiar name for those in the ARCA East world from over there, Rev is defending champion. So a lot of good, solid racing, not only in the States, but worldwide, and we're really excited about that.
We saw the ARCA West get the chance to race on dirt the past 2 years, provided plenty of excitement, so I'm looking forward to watching the Pinty's race. I'll definitely be watching it on my Track Pass app there. But Brandon, to get away from all of the, scheduling and what to expect this season, we want to take a chance to talk about you here for a moment. What was the first thing that got you interested in motorsports and how you got to this current role? Because you definitely play a pivotal part in how a lot of the things here at NASCAR in our touring series really take play.
Well, Hannah, I appreciate you saying that, and great question. So I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. So a little bit of a backstory before I get into directly answer your question. So my grandmother actually lived less than 2 miles from the Fairground Speedway, and where my father and my uncles grew up. They were really close. I had a couple of uncles who, after I got hired at NASCAR, decided to enlighten me about how they used to sneak under the fence after the cup races started over there at the Fairground Speedway. And I kind of joked with them. I'm like, why did you all wait until now to tell me all these stories? I probably could have been going to races the entire time. But so I didn't grow up really close to racing. But the one thing that I will say is that the first time I attended a race, I was instantly hooked. And I'm sure a lot of other people can share that sentiment. I interned at the Nashville Super Speedway out in Lebanon, Tennessee, is where I got my start doing promotions and marketing there. But I will never forget standing on pit road for an Indy Lights race prior to the IndyCar race that was scheduled that weekend, and hearing the cars fire up. And I'm telling you, from head to toe, hair standing up, chills all over my body. And I was just thinking to myself, I don't know what that was, but I want more of it. And so that was kind of my start. Remember seeing, obviously, my first NASCAR race was watching Scott Riggs in the Nesquik number 10 car go to victory lane there at Nashville. And then it kind of ballooned from there. I was been fortunate and blessed enough just to be able to move around in a few different capacities. Worked in what's now known as the Industry Operations Department, where we worked victory lane and were kind of responsible for the contingency program back then. Then moved over to multicultural affairs, and then over to Rev Racing. Worked with some really great folks over there. Obviously, Max Siegel, who was over at DEI for a spell, and then Andy Santerre, who was a terror to competitors up in the E Series. So I kind of cut my teeth that way, and then back to NASCAR doing some more National Series stuff before coming over here to the Touring Series. But so been around since 2003 in terms of my internships and stuff like that. And it's been a heck of a ride, and happy to see where it goes from here.
So that begs the next question. We've talked about all these series here in this country and in the Pinty Series in Canada, NASCAR Mexico, NASCAR Whelen Euro. You're going to be a busy guy this year. What does your schedule look like, and how often are you able to get to a lot of these racetracks?
I still don't think, Kyle, I figured out an exact method to this. I will say this, is that most of the time, the last couple of years, the best way I know how to do this is to start the season and look at, okay, you're going to be at Daytona for Speed Weeks regardless of what happens. So you can check that box. And then after that, I really just try to focus on, particularly as we get later in the season, which racetracks on each schedule have I not had a chance to go to? And so I usually try to click off at least a couple of those per series, and then just kind of go back and look at the ones that are, okay, where are events that I feel like I'm going to be needed, or where we may have a lot of things going on. So we'll see how that works out this year. There's definitely, obviously, some new tracks on a few different schedules, which is going to make that a little bit of a challenge, because surely some of them are going to overlap. But I need to get, one of the things, and I'm saying it on air, so I stick to it, but I need to get some more weekly tracks than we have. We have a really good staff of folks working on that with Tony Glover and Les Westerfield, who do a really great job of managing that, and I'm usually able to get to a couple races a year, but I definitely want to get to a couple more than a couple this year, just to kind of be around. I love having conversations with the folks in the weekly series, and just chatting with some of, particularly some of your names who have been through a lot of the national series, but obviously even the folks who are kind of shade tree types of folks as well, just to get a true sense of what's going on in the garages there. But so that's the best explanation I got. I don't know that it's perfect. It's probably not, but that's usually how I try to approach it.
I will say I commend you. There's been many weekends where I've done, some work with you guys at NASCAR Home Tracks, and I will be at Kern County Raceway Park with the ARCA West one weekend, and 2 weekends, and you're there, and 2 weekends later I'm in Thompson, Connecticut with the modifieds, and you'll be there as well. And I'm like, whoa, he's all over the place too. So we're looking forward to running into you at a lot of the races. And I think, Kyle, you will be down at New Smyrna, correct?
Yes, we'll be there next week.
Perfect. Well, Brandon, thank you again so much for coming on. We look forward to seeing you at many of the racetracks this up and coming season, and best of luck as you guys get ready to kick off the season.
Yeah, of course. Kyle, Hannah, thanks for having me, and we look forward to seeing you at the track.
Awesome. Thank you. That was Brandon Thompson, Managing Director of NASCAR Touring Series. When we return, though, there's been a lot of racing that we talked about in that first segment that happened throughout the country, and we're going to recap and catch you up to speed here on what's happened so far in the 2020 season.
Whelen designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and high-powered warning systems for automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Every part of every Whelen product is proudly designed and manufactured in America and is tested on site to meet the toughest industry certifications. On the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, trusted to perform.
Back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen and by Hercules Tires. Here are Hannah Newhouse and Kyle Rickey.
One of the big events of the 2020 season is right around the corner with Speed Weeks kicking off at New Smyrna. So before we recap what's already happened, we're going to give you a little bit of insight of what to expect at New Smyrna in just under a week. World Series kicks off this Friday night with super late models, pro late models, Florida modifieds, sportsmen's, and bomber. And Kyle, those prelim lists are looking pretty solid for those that are looking to get out there and watch some short track racing.
It's one of the bigger car counts I have seen in the last decade or so for going out to New Smyrna. I mean, the prelim entry list look like 23 super late models right now, 24 pro late models, and how about this? 36 Tour modifieds, 14 trucks, and 16 Florida modifieds. That is a lot of race cars to jam into the infield of New Smyrna Speedway, and I'm sure they'll use some of the pits off the back straightaway and into turns 3 and 4 as well. A lot of great names. I believe most of the Catalano family makes up about half of that entry list for the Tour-type modifieds. Ryan Preece is going to be there. Bubba Pollard in a Tour-type modified, I believe for the first time, who will be driving for Ryan Preece during the Tour-type modified portion of Speed Weeks next Monday through Friday. They'll run 5 nights, and everything kicks off, as you mentioned, this Friday night with the super late models and the pro late models. Going to be a great 9 nights of racing, as it always is there, but it's always good to have a lot of car count early in the week because you're going to get attrition, you're going to get breakage, and you get to those final few nights and you don't have the cars that fans hope to see. When you start off strong, though, you could afford to lose a couple, which no doubt we will, and still have a really good feel for the second half of the week.
And back on what you'd mentioned there, Bubba Pollard behind the wheel of one of Preece's modifieds. Preece has had some interesting names behind the wheel of his modifieds recently. Pollard obviously racing at Speed Weeks, but social media was taken aback a little bit as Kevin Harvick was at Martinsville recently with Preece testing, and the jokes were going back and forth between Delana and Kevin and Ryan about how Kevin was back behind the wheel, and he'd made the statement of, I'm not just testing to test. I'm driving one of these cars because I intend on racing it. So that'll be something to watch out for as well. Pretty cool that Preece, while he's got his hands full with his cup obligations, has been able to, open the door for those who have always been interested in what are the Tour modifieds, because they are a beast all of their own.
And Kevin Harvick, the last couple of years, has been very involved in the modified racing with the Ted Christopher connection up at Stafford Motor Speedway. KHI, his management company, one of the contingency sponsors at Stafford. The driver that leads lap number 13 of the SK modified race gets a bonus. And I believe the driver that finishes in the 13th spot gets a bonus. Of course, the number 13, the late Ted Christopher's number up here in the Northeast. So that program has continued the last couple of years. And because of that program, that relationship between Ryan, who was a Stafford regular before he made the move to the Cup Series, has formed with Kevin Harvick. And Ryan has always said, I want to get Kevin behind the wheel. And he did in a test session, and I believe he's probably going to run that race at the Martinsville Speedway coming up here in the month of May.
I feel like that is a great opportunity to have a lovely NASCAR Coast to Coast live,
From Martinsville.
We better start calling it the K&N series a lot between now and May. But it'll be really exciting to see that. That's a great opportunity. And Kevin behind the wheel of modified, pretty cool. Especially Bubba too. Bubba drives anything, man. If that thing's got 4 wheels and a motor, Bubba's all about it. And
he wins in everything.
Yeah, he wins too.
He does well in everything he gets in. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do with that field of modifieds next week at New Smyrna.
Well, leading up to New Smyrna, there was a lot of drivers that got a little extra track time before the Florida season kicked off there. The Chilly Willy out at Tucson, like we said, these drivers will seek out any warm weather that they can. It was the 7th annual Chilly Willy, and Preston Peltier took home that trophy in the super late models. Mark Neff came home second. The youngster Cole Raz, he's really starting to make a name for himself. I believe he was the Arizona state champion last year through Tucson. Came home third, and Chris Eggleston won the Legends feature, previous ARCA West champion. So their season kicking up underway. They take one of those weird breaks right in the middle of the season because it is just too hot to race at Tucson in the middle of the summer. So their season starts a little bit earlier. But the Irwindale Speedway recently took on the Showdown as well. They took it over from Kern County Raceway Park. And the Pro Late Model race was pretty interesting there, Kyle.
Yeah, Cole Williams claimed the win, but some last lap controversy. Has had some contact with Jeremy Doss in the final lap. They thought there might be a call made. There was not, and Williams ended up claiming the race win there in the Pro Late Models. And in the Super Late Models, Derek Thorne, another former champion in the ARCA West Series, was able to claim the win there, led the final 105 laps of that 200-lap event to claim the win. So a lot of racing over on the West Coast. Las Vegas Bull Ring opens up here in a couple of weeks' time with the ARCA West Series, as they'll also open up their season. For the first time, I think, in a long time, there almost was the K&N. The ARCA West has been running the dirt track at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway the last couple of years, but now we're returned to the asphalt track for the most part, the parking lot of the big track, 1.5 mile speedway there to kick off a busy race weekend at Las Vegas once we clear Daytona here in 2 weeks.
This is my imaginary dollar going in our imaginary bucket right now. And Kyle, actually, on a random note, I was cleaning out my purse the other day, and you want to know what I found?
I can only imagine.
Remember that we confiscated your driver's license from Daytona last year around this time because you still can't drive a car with a clutch?
Yeah, I remember that.
No one's forgot about that.
Apparently, that driving experience, the NASCAR racing experience, is going to happen again this year for the Motor Racing Network crew. I'm not sure if
I'm looking forward to the video.
Yeah. I'm not sure it's going to happen because it's going to happen right when we film NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Wow, everyone timed that perfectly.
Guys, we can rearrange the schedule a little bit.
Yeah, we'll rearrange the schedule.
You to be able to drive.
I'm not going to Daytona, but I might have to now.
Just to film.
Who took the video last year?
Dylan.
I don't remember. Oh, yeah.
Dylan took the video.
Yep.
Well, Kyle, as much as I'm looking forward to the K&N series, though, $2, as much as I'm looking forward to the ARCA series kicking off and Speed Weeks down there, I'm also looking forward to hopefully watching you try and drive a car with a clutch.
And if I don't blow the car up, maybe I'll get onto the racetrack and it'll be fun. Last year I got a push start. We might just go right to that.
Oh, how I've missed this show. Well, we are looking forward to doing it again every week. So much to talk about each and every week from NASCAR Roots all across the country. We will do it again next week with Kyle on location from New Smyrna Speedway and myself here in the Concord, North Carolina location. For NASCAR Coast to Coast, I'm Hannah Newhouse, he's Kyle Rickey's, and for producers Craig Moore and Brian
NASCAR Coast
we'll see you next week.
Has been brought to you by Whelen and by Hercules Tires. NASCAR Coast to Coast can be found on MRN.com, Facebook, YouTube, or your favorite podcast provider. NASCAR Coast to Coast is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.